that chat and chew, we it is called Pain and Infused Mental Health and Ministry, and we tackle different topics that are relevant to what is going on in today's society. And this topic today is no different. And what we decided to do was we wanted to ensure that more people could be a part of it. We know it's the holiday season and people are traveling and want to be a part of be a part of it, but may not be able to drive to the location or the venue. So what we did was we made it virtual. We made it so that people could join from wherever they are and be able to be a part of this great event. And so we are talking about relationships. And the good thing about talking about relationships is we're talking about the good, the not so good, the oh my sides of it, the parts that we don't get to talk about in church. You know, a lot of times, many of us, because this is a faith-based organization, many of you that follow PAYNE Glory and that are part of this community, you all are in the faith community. And a lot of times we you know, there are certain topics that are a little touchy, little topics that are a little sensitive, and it stems from what our background is in the home. Oftentimes we don't get a chance to discuss these things. So I wanted to make sure that I brought someone on who not only had the wisdom and the knowledge, but someone who could provide for us that much needed push.
Dialogue.
That much needed dialogue, yes.
Yeah.
Much needed dialogue to help us to get some understanding and help us to really just kind of hone in on what it is that we need to know. So I present to you all the most wonderful Professor Keba Richmond Green. Thank you so much for being a part of today's event. I really appreciate you.
Thank you for including me. Thank you for thinking of me when you're talking about this type of conversation, because it is important. We don't have it enough, especially with women and our daughters and our sisters. I don't know why we are so, I don't want to say prideful, but it's probably prideful that we won't have this conversation enough with the ladies, and we're all dealing with the same issues. So it's needed. It's so needed.
It's needed.
Yes.
It's needed. So Professor Keba, if you would just give us a little, before we dive in, because I've got some things I want to dive in, tell us a little bit about you as a relationship expert. How did you get to this point? Tell us about Professor Keba.
Okay, so I always say that this is just my purpose. I'm just, my purpose really is a counselor, not just because of degrees or anything like that. It's just simply that's who he called me to be. And I remember when I was going to school and getting my master's, and he said to me, you're a marriage and family therapist, but you're not a wife. God said that to me, and I was like, whoa, you understand what I'm saying? And he said, before I can call you to the nation, you have to be a wife first. So you have to learn what a wife is. And so I had to really sit down and do some work at home. There we go. I had to really sit down and do some work at home on my family, on myself, and be the wife that I teach my clients to be, or be the woman that I teach my clients to be, and that I want my daughter to be, and I want, to inspire other young women to be. I had to sit down and do my work. So I've done that. I've taken time, I've nurtured myself, I've nurtured my husband, I've nurtured my family, and I've done what I needed to do to make sure that now I can go out into the world and do the things that God wants me to do as far as ministry with the family.
And that's so important. And that's so important because family is important. We need to know that, especially in today's society.
Exactly.
There's foolishness. There's too much going on where people throw away their family, like not just throw away the marriage, not just throw away the relationship, because it's, relationships span farther than just husband and wife, or fiance and it spans farther than that. It's sisters and brothers, it's siblings, it's relationships that are forged, and friendships, there's partnerships, understanding that importance, and like you said, getting an understanding, like getting in there and seeing it's needed, it's necessary. I appreciate you. I appreciate you for that.
Thank you. Yeah. It's more than just husband and wife. Absolutely. It's family, period. Whatever family is for you. You know,
right.
I used to be a foster parent, so I took in kids all the time. So that's family for me. You know, I was the type of person, I used to take in everybody's kid, you know, because I see them getting bullied or they're having trouble at home. I would be the house that everybody came to. And so that's family for me. So he just gave me the gift of compassion. And he told me that I'll give you compassion back, to bring compassion back to the world, because
right.
we've lost a sense of compassion for people and for family and for everyone. And so we have to get that back. And my grandparents were those type of people, you know, they believed in just bringing in the neighborhood and just taking care of everybody and taking care of everybody's kids. So I saw that and I just embraced that. And that's what I truly believe now. Don't get me wrong. It brought a lot of turmoil in the house sometimes, because my husband would be like, who is this? And
right.
Because I was just that person, you know, it'd be a homeless
the
mother.
nurturer.
I would just bring people in, a homeless mother and 3 kids, just be like, well, they're homeless. I can't let them leave them. And he'll be
right.
like, but you're going to be homeless if you keep being homeless. It's that person. But of course, with time and with wisdom, with education, I can no longer do that. Right. But I do it in a different way now. I just nurture and counsel in a different way.
There you go. I love that. And understanding that there's some people, you know, it takes a minute, you know, because you are such a nurturer, you know, you have you have to go through the process of realizing, okay, this might not be the way to go.
This might not be the smartest thing to do, right?
Right. But in that season, it was necessary, though.
In that season, it was. It really was.
In that season, it was necessary. Yeah. And so now, like you said, you have a different platform. You have a different way of doing it and going about it. So, you know, and God honors that and favors that. So I want to get back to something you said just a moment ago, which kind of will get us rolling into this whole relationship thing. You brought up your grandparents. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking about even when you and I had our conversation, I was thinking about, you know, how the dynamics of what I saw personally, I can't speak for anyone else, what I saw personally growing up, what the family unit looked like, and how that was growing up, and comparing that to now, and how some of the same, I don't want to say stigma, some of the same traditions, that's what word I want to use. Some of the same traditions are still there, mindsets are still there from back when our grandparents were here. And some of them are great. For example, I remember seeing, so, you know, you got 2 sets of grandparents, and both my grandparents were very diversely different. But you have, on one hand, you see the working father, you know, with you know, going out to work and providing for the home, and the wife being, well, I don't think my grandmother, my mother's side, was ever a homemaker. So she actually took care of our house, but she wasn't stay at home. She was out always working. But you didn't see a lot as it pertained to, I didn't see a lot as it pertained to romance or intimacy or compliments. Yeah. Even compliments. I didn't see that. You went to work, you did your job, you did, you know, you raised the kids, you did what you're supposed to do. And so there were specific roles that were played. And so now, you know, you come into adulthood, you come into the 80s and the 90s, and the woman is the strong Black woman, you know, and out working and getting it for herself and doing it for herself. And we went through that whole phase of I don't need a man foolishness and all that. And, you know, the man, like, you know, I can have her, and her, and her.
Exactly.
Because you don't need a man.
Right.
And so that dynamic kind of broke down, but there was still that innate need or desire for family, for there to be a unit, but it was so disjointed. Nobody was really talking about how to make that work.
Right. So true. So like you said, my maternal, my mother parents were the same way. They were married. And like you said, she worked outside the home. He worked outside the home. And when they got divorced, we still live a block away from each other. Okay. So all my family pretty much live like within a 5-mile radius of each other. So we could always get to each other. They still do now, actually, believe it or not. They really still do. And so even though they divorced, they never showed us a disconnect, if you know what I mean. They still traveled together. We went on family trips together. We did everything together as a family. We always did everything together as a family. However, like you said, there was never any affection, never any, and growing up in a house full of women, because I grew up with my grandmother and my aunt and my mother. And so my mother wasn't this type, but my grandmother and my aunt were always like, you don't need a man. You know, you don't need a man. You just get an education and you take care of yourself. And, you know, they did talk about you would be married one day and have kids, but they didn't necessarily say to me, you need a man. You know what I'm saying? So you make sure that you have your own, basically, is what they always said to me. And so I just thought that was so interesting. And I'm like, yeah, you know, you have children, you have family, you've been married. And I'm thinking like, wow, you have this bitterness toward me. And this was me and my grandmother. I was always thinking you have this bitterness toward me. And like, but she was always like, they ain't no good, because my grandfather obviously cheated. I didn't know that till later, but you know, she had this anger.
That bitterness comes from somewhere.
Yeah, so you know, it was like men are no good and they're all liars. You know, it was that same rhetoric we hear today. So anywho, so my mother was the type who loved hard and loved fast, I would say. So she would kind of be in relationships. And it may have been an escape to get away from them. You understand what I'm saying? So she would get in relationships and leave and go with men. And so, and she would get married. And so things like that. And so to me, listening to my grandmother and my aunt talk, I thought she was very dysfunctional, I guess you would say. You know what I'm saying? Because I was thinking, so listening to them and watching her behavior, to me said it's something wrong with her. Because she's not doing it the way they're doing it. You understand what I'm saying? And it's not working out for her. You got me? It's not working long term for her. So she doesn't know what she's doing. So I had this anger toward my mother for a long time growing up, because all I had was their words in my head about her. I didn't know her really as a person. Now, mind you, my mother had us very young. My mother had my oldest brother at 15. She had my next brother at 17 and me at 18. So she's still practically a kid herself, okay? So they made her and my dad get married. You understand? Because of course you had these kids, you're gonna get married. And they had this life, because my dad had a great job. So they had a house, they had 3 cars, motorcycles. You see what I'm saying? At 18 years old, just think of 18 with all this responsibility and 3 kids. So it was crazy, because my daddy was abusive, he was a drinker. They were young and wild and reckless, really, literally. So my grandmother came and took me from them, left my brothers and took me, because she said, no, girl need to grow up in this environment. Now, mind you, the boys still in that, but the girls. So again, all of this is being formed in my head about relationships. Think about that, and my beliefs about my parents. But anyway, so I saw my mother being very carefree with love, if you would say, you know what I'm saying? And trying to find herself. And to me, that was reckless. And then I heard my grandmother and my aunt saying, you know, you don't need to, you just stay focused on education. You get your education. You don't worry about no kids, no husband, none of that. You just go to school. So in my mind, I think I formulated, and watching my daddy be abusive. Now I'm a daddy's girl. I'm watching him be the man in my eye, be abusive to the mother, okay, that I already have issues with, okay? So, so I got all these things going on as a kid. And so I think what helped me was my uncles. My uncles had what I would call stable, healthy marriages, if that makes sense. Okay. So they were the ideal relationship for me, or what I would think an ideal relationship. My friends around me, parents had stable relationships. So I got to see people what looked like stable. Of course, I didn't know what was happening in the house, and I was a kid. So to me, on the outside, and then of course, when the Cosby came along, okay, that just embedded that for me for what I had already seen with my uncles. You understand what I'm saying? So that helped formulate what a relationship was for me. I was able to take the perception of, okay, there is a such thing as true love. There is a such thing as happiness. There is a such thing as you can be really married and happy. So I took that. Now, again, everybody's perception is different. Everybody could have came out with a whole different idea of what they saw. I took it as yeah, there's somebody out there for me. I don't have to take abuse. I don't have to be mistreated, and I can be happy in marriage. And so that's what I went looking for, if that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. It's interesting. You said a couple of things that really kind of I wanted to ask you about. That you mentioned about your parents, about how even though there were 3 children, that they were made to get married. And the unfortunate thing is that is still happening. People are encouraging in a very spiritual way people to get married, that you know, prophet lying to people, and telling them or intimidating them or forcing them to get married when they don't necessarily need to be married. They don't need, you know. And so you've got 2 people in an agreement, in a contract, in a marriage that don't have, they care for one another possibly, or maybe they just had children together, but there's no love.
Exactly.
Yeah, and there's no love there. So now you have to be in a marriage where you're miserable because someone else put their hand in the pot, and now you're in a situation.
Put their beliefs on you, put their own values onto your life and made you live their way. Absolutely. Not only that, but I'm glad you said that, but even with the abuse. Like, even with the abuse, and they knew the abuse was going on, they told her it was her fault. You understand what I'm saying? They told her, if you would just do this, if you would just close your mouth, if you would just be a good wife, because that's a good man. He's a good provider. You see what I'm saying? So all of those things, they fed her to keep her in control, you know, and to do things their way. And again, sort of look good to the outside, because that's really all it's about, is to look good to other people. Yeah. So,
and that's what I was going to, that was the second thing that I was going to ask about, because the abuse part, you know, someone was just saying a couple of weeks ago, a pastor friend of mine was saying, you know, we've heard, you know, just pray about it. Just go home, pray about it. Just, you know, God will work it out. And I'm sure he will, but he may not be working it out in the way that you think he is. He may be working it out for me to have a plan of escape.
Exactly.
Yes, exactly. Yes. I remember speaking with a friend of mine, a male friend of mine, about a year, maybe 2 years ago now. And as you know, from PAYNE Glory, I'm a domestic violence abuse survivor. And he asked me a question. And at first, when he asked me the question, I said yes. But then when I thought about it, Keba, I was like, wait a minute, no. And the question was, did my views on intimacy have anything to do with what I experienced with that relationship? And I said, yeah. And I'm thinking, no, not in the way that he was thinking. You know, not in the way he was thinking. And I began to, from that time of that question up until last week, I have been pondering that question and actually talked to other women who had been in domestic violence situations. And it's not necessarily, it's not across the board. Nothing is across the board. Nothing is cut and dry for everybody. Nothing is absolute. But for me and the ladies, every single lady I spoke to, it's not necessarily the fact of the abuse, you know, as far as intimacy with their husband. It is possibly triggers. It is possibly, you know, if her first sexual experience, or if her experience with her previous husband or previous relationship was that of abuse, or if it was just not good, it was not a good experience, and the spouse does not recognize that and says things that are or does things that does not take into account what his wife has shared with him, and only uses her as a receptacle for his pleasure, then of course she is not going to be all, you know, lovey-dovey and, you know, always in the mood, because he's not taking into account, taking into the account that this trauma has happened. It's not that she doesn't want intimacy, because we as women, we desire that, but it is having that understanding. And so when you said about the fact of your grandmother having to be put in your mother being told, well, just go on, you know, well, no, now she's got to be in a position where she's got to be the wife
all the time.
All the time. Absolutely. For someone that she didn't necessarily want to marry. most likely. Because you had to tell me to marry somebody, I probably didn't want to marry.
Right.
I mean, and they could have made great parents, because sometimes people make great parents.
Exactly. Separate.
Exactly. But unfortunately,
I think they both would have been happier people in the long run if they weren't. Well, especially him. You know, I think he has a lot of regrets about, you know, what happened and being forced to grow up quickly and be responsible. You understand what I'm saying? So I think he has a lot of bitterness and anger. I think my mother's past that, thank God, but I think that he still holds that and harbors that, you know, dang, you know, my life probably could have went in a whole nother direction, or I had an idea of who I wanted to marry. You understand what I'm saying? And what I wanted my life to be if I wasn't forced to step up and be this person that my parents and her parents told us we had to be.
Let me just tell you how profound that is, because I was talking to someone about 3 or 4 months ago. These were pastors who were told to get married, and they were miserable.
Wow.
And the example you just gave, what you just said about your own parents, oh my gosh, was what was said. You know, not that they didn't have love for their spouse. It was that wasn't the person.
That wasn't the plan for me. That wasn't my idea of who I was going to marry. That wasn't my
so they had to wear the mask. They had to put on the mask and go to church. And then when they got home, they took off the mask and they were miserable.
He was
miserable.
He was
and
miserable.
And then they, you know, they're having to face, how do we tell the church that we, you know, it's like telling your kids about you getting divorced. How do you tell your congregation of your kids? Right.
But they saw it. They knew.
Wow. You're probably right. Yeah. I've never been to that church. But
those who awake, those who pay attention knew. Let me say that. I think that
I believe that.
You know, sometimes we see what we want to see, but I think for the most part, you know.
I believe that. So then, Professor Keba, let's talk about, because what you're saying is so good, and I'm telling you, this is good stuff. This is good stuff. We're talking about relationships, and we're talking about, so since we went in the direction of the church, let's talk. Excuse me. Let's talk about that, because you know, outside, as we said, relationships span farther than husband and wife or dating relationships. But relationships also are those where you are a part of what seems like a family, which is a church.
Right.
And I posted something the other day on Facebook, and it was actually because of something that I had been a conversation. Usually something, if it's something I post, it's usually because of a conversation someone had with me, and I share it. And it was really, you know, why, let me ask you this, because you are the expert. Why is it that you feel that when people make the decision to change their membership from one church to the other, one ministry to the other, one organization to the other, one faith community to the next, that it is such an issue? We can. I gave the example the other day. I was at a retirement party for one of our colleagues, and we celebrated her going on to the next phase of her life. But what if she had given her 2-week notice and said, you know what, I've enjoyed my time here. I've learned a lot, I've grown a lot, but I've reached a place where I feel like I need to go on and grow. If she had given her 2-week notice, we still would have celebrated her. We still would have been like, oh, that's great, you know, go on. But when we leave a church, it is like, oh my gosh, we have wronged Jesus Christ himself.
Right.
Exactly.
How dare you break the covenant? Right.
How dare you? You know, and you know, people start speaking to one another, and it is, I don't understand. I personally don't understand it. And I'll give you this example, and I definitely want to hear your response. The church that I grew up in, from birth up until I was 20, I had never been to any other church. I had served on several different areas in the church. I mean, everything. And I remember being in church, in church services, and I would be hearing like other church services in my spirit and in my mind. And I remember saying, just as clear as I'm talking to you now, there's got to be more. Now, there was nothing wrong with the church. I love the people. They love me. There was no falling out. There was no drama or issue. But I remember it was like, yes, I was like, right. And I remember hearing it was audible, like there's got to be more. So we left going there. Fast forward 20-something years. Wow. This past April, we went there for my godmother's homegoing celebration. And it was as someone had just pressed pause and then press play.
Because you come back home.
There was so much love, and there was so much, nobody was like, it was, no. It was just like we pressed pause from where we were, and we picked up from where we left off. It was so much, it was so much love. I mean, we were laughing and clowning and just, and there was none of it. So I don't get it why now, in the society that we're in now, you can't talk to them. If they left the church, they're gone. You might, I mean, these are people you forge relationships with. So if they leave the church, I'm still gonna be cool with them. I'm still cool with people I used to work with 20 years ago.
Right.
So, what's your take on it?
The only reason I could think of is because, especially in the South, we tend to make our pastor our God. We tend to make our leader our God. And so how dare you leave Pastor said this, Pastor said, and so I know that's a Southern thing. I don't know about other cultures and other regions, but in the South, we tend to do that a lot, and so it's very hard for when you're under that type of leadership, that for people to disengage, to disconnect, because they feel like you've abandoned or you've, did we get stuck? Are we stuck, Chelsea? You froze on me. Hello? Yep. Be back in a minute. Okay, there we go.
Okay, there we go.
We got stuck.
Yes.
We got stuck. I saw you froze. I was like, she's frozen. Okay. So,
yeah, you froze at the same time. Okay. So I want to get back to what you were saying. You were saying about the culture of the church as far as people here in the South.
Yeah, so I think it's like we make our leaders our God. We put them on a pedestal. We really feel like you're supposed to obey. Really, you're supposed to obey them, and how dare you disconnect or disengage and leave pastor, or leave bishop. And so I think that's a lot of it. And unfortunately, that's almost a cultish type of religious mindset.
Yes.
And I don't know why, I can't speak to why people would do that other than that, because I personally think that's, kind of a problem. It's almost a mental illness.
Let me ask you this, because I've seen this. I have seen this. What if, Professor Keba, it is coming from that type of directive is coming from the leadership?
That's usually where it's coming from, because they are the head and they determine. I always say, your leader is the head, so the head determines what the rest of the body is going to do, right? So they're going to follow the leader, even subconsciously. Think about that. So even if he doesn't physically say it or verbally do things, what is happening up here is affecting everybody in the congregation. Just like you said, with the marriage. That's why I said, even for the pastors to say that, they put on this front, people knew, because I guarantee you some people having some problems at home and they didn't know why either, because the head is out of line. And when the head is out of line, everything else is out of line. It cannot function. You cannot get up here and tell me that my house is whole and your house is unstable. We on faulty foundation. It's not going to work.
Wow, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. And that's so true, because it does emanate down. And it's going to show. It's going to show. And like you said, those who are in tune, those who discern, they will know. They will see. Wow. So and it's unfortunate because I have seen time and time again where there have been some beautiful relationships built inside the church that, you know, have been there for people, you know, for the highs and the lows and the in-betweens. And then when they make the decision of the choice, or, you know, they're led to move on, it's like a big production. But
well, my thing is, then was it really genuine? Were you really my friend? Then, because motives always come out. Now, you understand? So, were you really my friend then? Because you were my friend for your own motives, your own selfish gains. You weren't my friend to be my friend.
Wow.
If you can leave me for that.
Right. Because
if you can leave me for that, then you're not my friend.
Exactly. Like the example I gave a moment ago, I mean, when we leave jobs, we still cool with people. You know, or
well, you know what? I was thinking about that too, because I was on a job and I thought you know how you think you make a connection with people and you like, yeah, we're good, we talk every day.
Right.
But when you leave that job, you don't hear from that person again, or they don't hear. And I know life is busy. Don't get me wrong. No, busy, but not even what's up? You good? Everything good? You know, not even that.
Right.
Again, you weren't my friend. You understand what I'm saying?
We were colleagues.
Somebody I talked to when I was at this place. And so that's fine, you know, but I think we get too caught up in, especially women, in friendships, and you know, and our feelings get hurt so easily over, you know, little mundane things that were really not even supposed to be.
Right, I agree 100%. I agree 100%.
You better be thanking God they didn't follow you from the church. How about that? You didn't want all that mess following you. You didn't want that.
Say that. Yes, indeed. So we're talking about Real Talk About Relationships with Professor Keba Richmond Green. We're excited that you're here. So Professor Green, so we've talked about relationships within marriages. We've talked about relationships as pertains to church, and we've talked a little bit about intimacy. What's some other nuggets that you would like to share? Let's say that we all are sitting in your office and you got a big old office to have us all in there. What's some key things like this? These are some life lessons that we all should know, whether it is dealing with marriages, whether it's dealing with friendships, or just relationships in general. One of the things you just talked about a moment ago is we as women being so sensitive, we can't help it, Professor Keba, we can't help it. But what are some of the things that you would share with us?
You know what? I think the number one thing is probably do your work. You know what I'm saying? Again, I think as women, we are so used to, and we're created this way, yes, to help and to nurture, but we are so quick to jump in and help everybody else. And that usually is an escape from dealing with what you need to be working on within you. And so, I mean, at some point you have, and I know at some point God will sit you down and make you do your work, but you don't want to get there. You know what I'm saying? You really kind of want to do it yourself, but do your work. And what I mean by that is stop projecting your stuff onto other people. We are so good at putting, especially parents, oh my God, especially as parents, we project, especially with our daughters, we project all our fears, we project all our dreams, we put all that on our kids, especially our daughters, especially as women. I always say we raise our daughters and we coddle our sons. And so we, you know, and we want them to be everything we weren't, and we want them to get the lessons we didn't in it. And I don't want her to hurt like I hurt, and I don't want her to fear, you know. And so we grow women up real fast and real strong, and then we make wimpy sons. So who they gonna marry?
Wow.
You know, who they gonna marry? Because you made a mama's boy over here who laying on the couch, but you made her go out and work and pay her car note and pay her bills and be responsible. But you didn't do that for him. So who they gonna marry? So you wanna know why we're in the situation we're in now, because we projected all these things onto our kids, and now we're living that example. We're reaping this now. And so I think that's one, is that we have to stop living in fear. If we say we're Christians, if you say you trust him, then you got to trust him. And that means you are not God. You are not God. You cannot preach, pray, cry, do it all. You either gonna pray and let it go, or you gonna work and not pray. I mean, that's just the bottom line. So, and I had to learn that. I had to get there. Trust me, it's hard. I'm not saying it's easy by any means, but what I'm saying is, if you're gonna trust me, you're gonna trust me. I was telling one of the young ladies, I think, some young lady I was talking to a while ago. I have 2 kids. I have a daughter that's 27 and a son that's 25, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so I just remember them being out of control as teenagers, and I couldn't understand for the life of me what is wrong with my kids, because I was such an obedient child. Like, I did everything my parents told me to the age of 18. 18, I went crazy. But up until 18, I did everything they told me to do, because that's just what I thought I was supposed to do. And I didn't understand. I've given you a house. You got this big old house. You got all this stuff. You have everything you need. You got food. It's 50,000 children here, because like I said, I brought everybody. Like, what is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? Why you can't get it together? I just didn't understand why they wouldn't, in my eyes, act right. You understand what I'm saying? Like, why are you acting out? Well, one, they're acting out because I'm never there. I'm always working. I was working to provide this lifestyle that I thought I was supposed to provide for them, in order for them to feel like, they had what everybody else had. And number 2, I wasn't present. When I was there, I wasn't there. I was asleep, or I was angry because I was stressed about bills, or I'm stressed because they're not acting right, or I'm stressed because the house. So I was not present with them. And so that's what they wanted more than anything. They wanted me. And now I'm not available. So I'm acting out to get your attention, but the attention that I'm seeking is still getting the wrong type of response. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I fast forward, when my kids were, maybe 19, 20-ish, and my daughter was really, really out there in the streets. And I was praying and crying and walking the floor all night and up all night and checking the doors. And if the phone ring, I'm worried because, something's going to happen. And God told me, cover them and let them go. I got them. And I said, how you do that?
Right? How you let them go?
How do you let your children go? And he said, I said, cover them and let them go. Because I was like, y'all not going to kill me, right? Literally, you're not going to kill me. Like, so I had to literally lay hands on them, pray over them, and release them to God. I had to close my door. I had to put them out of my house. Do you understand what I'm saying? And I had to release them to God. Okay, so why 6 months later my daughter gets shot?
Wow.
And I'm saying, you told me to let her go.
You told me, right.
You told me to let her go because you had her. And he said, and I still do. You understand what I'm saying? So, and she died on me 3 times. But he had to lay her down on her back to get her attention. You understand what I'm saying? He had to literally lay her down and get her attention, because it's not for me to do. I've done my job. Whether good, bad, right or wrong, whatever feelings I have about my parenting skill, I'm done. Done. Now, what that experience taught me, sitting in that hospital with my baby with tubes out of her body, and I think I cried the day I got there, because she was in Tennessee, I was here, so I had to run. We had to run there. I cried when I got there and I saw her, but I never cried again, because he told me, I'm not going to kill her, but I had to get her attention. You understand what I'm saying?
Right. And he could get her attention way better than you could.
Absolutely. So what I'm saying to you is, what I learned that day was, it doesn't matter how much you cry, pray, he got this. Let him. Now don't, hopefully nobody has to go through what I had to go through. But what I'm saying to you is, you're not in control of anything. Nothing. What I learned that day was, I'm not in control of anything. These are a loner. These children are loners. Do you understand what I'm saying? Right. They have their personality from 5 years old. They're already who they're going to be. Right. It is our permit. All we supposed to do is kind of guide them and direct them a little bit. Come over to the left, come over to, don't run out. You know what I'm saying? Because they are who they are. Think about it. How many times have you whooped your child and they go do the same thing? Because they are who they are. Who they are. Right. They are who they are already. You already know from 5 years old whether that child is stubborn or mean or whatever, strong will, whatever,
this is true.
passive,
this is true.
or whatever it is. You know that.
Right.
That doesn't pretty much change. Environment is stronger than will. So environment does play a
Wow.
part as long as, and just as well as DNA. Those two things do, but environment is stronger than will. And
Wow.
so even though we sit there and we think, I got this, environment plays a huge part in the way we go out and make decisions, especially young people who cognitive brain is not even formed yet. So you won't know why they doing dumb things because they ain't smart
They don't
yet.
know. Yeah.
It ain't even
Right.
it's still soft. It's like a baby little soft. It's still soft up there. It's not formed. So they're trying to learn and they're trying to figure out. Your job as a parent, an aunt, a friend, whatever, is to pray and cover them.
Right.
To them and sustain them so they gain the knowledge that they need so they can finally make some smart decisions. That's it.
Finally.
And I mean, come on now, I'm almost 50 and we still make, decisions every day that somebody could be like,
oh, yeah.
What's smart?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
That one smart. So, but I think, so I say that to say, number one, you have no control over anything. So all that fussing and crying and hooping and hollering you're doing is not getting the purpose solved. I promise it's not getting anything done. Actually, it's making it worse because they're actually tuning you out. And number two is, if you trust God, trust God. That's it.
Right.
If you say you trust God, trust God.
Right.
And that's, I think, a problem that we Christians have really, really bad is that we say we have all this faith that we trust, and then we go out and try to do everything for him.
Right. Everything.
Especially as parents, everything. Well, he's taking too long. Let me just see. Let me see if I can move this over a little bit, maybe speed it up, or let me try this, or let me try that. And I'm guilty. I'm so guilty.
I think we all are. Yeah.
I'm so guilty with that because I'm saying, well, is he telling me to move or is he telling me to sit still? Because you're not sure. Is he telling me to be quiet or does that mean I need to make one step and he'll make the rest? And so it's an uncertainty there, but at the same time, I think that I guess that would be the next thing is you really know your child.
Right.
Your child, whether you admit it out loud or not, you know your child. You know if your child a thief. You know if your child a liar. You know if your child is a good person. You know your child. You just have to own up to the fact who your child is.
Absolutely.
And be okay with that.
And be okay with it.
And be okay with it. I mean, it's not always a reflection of you. I think as parents, we always, we take that guilt on and think, oh, it's something I did and what I could have did this, and maybe we could have. But the problem is, again, they are who they are already. They really are. And so owning that it's okay. I made a mistake. I was not such a good mother here. I did something. I had to sit my kids down and apologize. I'm sorry. I wasn't there. I wasn't present. I thought I was doing it right. I didn't know. And so,
wow. That's powerful.
So, I didn't know. I was young. I was trying to figure it out myself. I didn't know how to be a good mother. I didn't know. And so I did what I saw. Think about that. Yep. I did what I saw. And I tried to listen to people, but hey, thank God y'all alive. That's all I say. I tell them all the time, I'm just glad you got some common sense. But kids do they hear what you do. Mm-hmm. They hear what you do. Mm-hmm. They don't hear what you say. They hear what you do. You have to be that example for them. Yeah. My kids, I worked a lot. My kids work. They are going to work no matter what. They're going to work because I was a worker. And so that's what they saw. And so all that fussing I was doing about other stuff, they didn't hear that. Mm-mm. They saw me get up every day and move. They saw me get up and make things happen. And that's what they do for their lives. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. So they hear what you do. I don't know why I'm on the parenting thing. I'm just on it. But
that's good stuff. That's good stuff because you said something just now, and it spans not only for parents, but it spans across relationships in general. And something you said about when you said about raising your kids and you didn't know what to do, so you did what you saw. And a lot of times in relationships, we do that. We do what we see. For me, like going back to like you were talking about parenting, we do what we saw. And for me growing up, I didn't really see, the whole dynamic of marriage and family like I was explaining to you. So what I saw was soap operas. So, you know, there was the illusion of what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be, you know,
Luke and
love and
Laura.
romance and a little bit of drama mixed in and all that other stuff, and, you know, being swept off your feet, and then, you know, just the whole, none of that is reality.
Right.
You know, because my reality was,
it's some people reality now.
Oh yeah, well,
it's some people reality. But true. I got you.
But it wasn't mine. It wasn't mine. And the reality that I did have was, you know, my parents, you know, were parents, but I didn't see them as a couple. They were great parents and still are great parents.
Right.
But, you know, having the ability to see, you know, what that looked like, I did what I saw. And that, I think that you saying that really is key across, even the example you gave about with churches. You know, people do what they see. They see sister such and such, you know, acting this way and behaving this way towards someone who's left the church, and because they're a senior leader or they've been there the longest, well, maybe that's how we're supposed to act. So that's how we're going to act. You know, this is how, you know, I've seen people raise their children. So I don't know if this is right, but I'm gonna do it. Right. You know, and you know, but the good thing is we have people like you who can kind of lead us. Okay, that might work for them, but let's try this.
Let's find out what works for you. Let's find out what works for you, because every home is different, every house is different, every experience is different, right? And so even in relationships, okay, so even men-women relationships, right? And like I told you, I've done my work. I had to really do my work with my husband, because again, coming from independent women, I was very independent. And so this is my second marriage, but I came in with, you know, I got my own, you know, I don't need you. Basically, I don't need you. You know what I'm saying? If you decide you're going to leave me, because again, that's hurt talking, right? If you decide that we ever not going to make it, I don't need you to think that I need you, bro. You know what I'm saying? So
major defense memechanism.
It's a huge defense mechanism. And again, I know where it comes from, because again, seeing my mother being in an abusive relationship, and and thinking, always thinking that, you know, if she would have had her own, she wouldn't have had to depend on him and he took care of everything. I would never be in that situation. I would never let a man control me, is what I thought it was. You understand what I'm saying? So,
right.
And then again, listen to my grandmother, my aunt, and all that. So I had to really learn that that's not control, Keba. You understand what I'm saying? That's marriage. Like, it's a unity. Like, you have to yield. You have to concede. You have to compromise. My husband said, I'll tell you, you're not a good compromiser. I mean, because I'm used to having it my way all the time. I had to really learn. And God stripped me. He had to strip me down to nothing. To get that message, because that was very hard for me to understand that he's not controlling you. He's your husband. You have to learn to trust and lead. Why'd you marry him? Why'd you marry him if you know what I'm saying? So right. I think learning to as I say, concede. It's not always compromise, maybe collaborate more. You know, find a win-win for both of you. It don't always have to be either or. It doesn't always have to be you win or they win. Right. You know what I'm saying? Let's find a common ground for both of us to both get something that we desire and both be happy on it. And so I think we don't do that in relationships. I think we always feel like we have to one up, or somebody is going to get the short end or the stick of, and that's not necessarily true.
That's absolutely, I love it. So Professor Keba, as we wrap up, please tell everyone how they could connect with you. If they want to learn more about you, if they want to connect with you, if they want to follow you on social media, how do they connect with Professor Keba Richmond Green?
Please follow me. Professor Keba Richmond Green on all social media, or just Keba Richmond Green is my personal page. I just wrote another book, Love and War, Relationships 101. It's 21 asked and answered questions about parenting, marriage, relationships. You can get it at loveandwar101.com, loveandwar101.com. It'll be ready January 15th, but you can pre-order now. So
that's excellent, Professor
yeah.
Keba. That's great.
Thank you, thank you. I have a friend. She is always on me about, you are just the dopest. Like, you don't get it. You're the relationship counselor. You're not telling her. So she was like, we're gonna sit down and do a book. And so we're gonna do a parenting one. We're gonna do one on sex. We're gonna just make it I can't even think of a bunch of different sections of books. And so, because it's so needed, I think a lot of people are struggling in areas, relationships, because like you said, we just didn't have the conversations. No one talked to us. No one sat down and had these conversations with us, and especially in the church or at home. And then I would love to talk more about these things because I think it's needed. Again, Professor Keba, Richmond Green on all social media, and loveandwar101.com.
Absolutely. Professor Keba, we are definitely going to have you back because I definitely want to talk about sex and intimacy. That's really taboo. Oh,
please
my.
Do. I was going to say it a second ago. It didn't come out. I was about to say we need to talk about sex and intimacy. We need to talk about sex, seriously.
So trust and believe there will be a part 2 of Real Talk about relationships with Professor Keba Richmond Green. So go ahead and lock that in your mind, Professor Keba. This is what's necessary. We're not talking about it. And so therefore you got
But everybody's doing it, Chelsea. Yeah, everybody's doing it, and nobody's
I want you to know
talking.
that's the truth. I want you to know it's the truth. And there are a lot of frustrated, unfulfilled women. There are a lot of men who have these. Well, okay, part 2 is coming. Part 2 is coming.
Yes.
So listen, thank you all for joining in. Thank you for watching. I am Chelsea Payne, founder of PAYNE Glory Incorporated. You can follow us on all social media platforms at PAYNE and Glory. That's PAYNE and Glory. That is on Twitter, Twitter, Facebook. Be sure also we have our Pain in the Pews Mental Health and Ministry group, Facebook group. So if you're interested in being a part of our group, just go to Facebook groups and just type in Pain in the Pews and you will find us. We always have something going on in there. We have upcoming events that are coming up on next month, January the 11th. We'll be hosting a mental health first aid certification course. This is a dynamic course because you want to know what to do in the event of. Just as we take first aid for medical issues, you want to be able to help someone who's having a mental health crisis, and that is going to be January 11th. If you're interested in that, you'll find that on the events page on Facebook. Again, Professor Keba, we are happy that you are here. There will be.
Don't forget your lunch. What's your lunch you're doing soon?
So next Saturday, on the 28th, right here in Austell, Georgia, I am having a Purpose Magnet lunch. I'm also a certified women's inner purpose and power coach, and I'm also a certified life coach. And on this particular next Saturday, I am having a Purpose Magnet launch, and it is going to be so much fun. You can find that also on events. It's Purpose Magnet Launch. I would love to see you guys there. It's free to attend the launch. I just need to RSVP so I can know who's coming. So that is next Saturday, and I'm excited about it. It's going to be at 12
noon. We got
noon.
a question. Oh, okay. Michelle said this was great.
Oh, thank you, Michelle. Thank you so much. We love you. We love you. We love you. And this will be shared. This broadcast will be shared. Professor Keba, excuse me. Again, thank you for coming. We will have a part 2, sex and intimacy.
Yeah. Yes.
I can't wait. So we'll have to set something up really soon.
Okay.
So in the meantime, have a wonderful, wonderful day. And if I don't speak to you again, which I'm sure I will, but for those of you who are on, have a very Merry Christmas. And we'll speak to you guys soon. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.